rhyme it? Do you know how to rhyme it? Oh, please just rhyme it.
Then he really gets into it.
Do you know how to rhyme it? We will be rocking in LA, so let's rhyme it today. Just rhyme it.
Yes.
We are gonna rhyme it. Just rhyme
That's
it.
where he just rammed it. I like that.
Everybody rhyme it. We'll be rocking in LA. Say hello to the Rams today and ram it.
I mean, now he's like on his feet.
Ram it.
Wow.
Ram it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Rams Brothers, the pod. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined by the other host of this show, Nick. Not the co-host, the other host. Nick, how are you today?
Doing great, Dean. Enjoying another lovely summer day here in sunny California. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's a sunny day in New Jersey. Not quite the same as California. It's a little bit more humid. But what are you going to do? We have a jam-packed episode for you guys today. First off, I want to kick it off by letting you guys know that this episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the Performance Package 4.0. Summer is already here. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? If you're not, I feel bad for you. If so, you're in luck. Our friends at Manscaped just launched their 4th generation performance package, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Complement your summer bod with a trim from the leaders in male grooming. Use promo code LAFB20 for 20% off and free shipping with the code LAFB20. There was once a time, Nick, unfortunately, where you have some nick-ups, right? You have some unfortunate shaving accidents. So you want to be able to have a Manscaped trimmer that could kind of do it all. So again, 20% off, free shipping, Manscaped, LAFB20 at manscaped.com. That's right, it's 20% off. We're also sponsored by BrewX, Nick. BrewX is the independently owned craft brewery located in Anaheim and features over 30 beers and 10 hard seltzers. I'm not a huge seltzer guy, but I like the classic lemonade at 5% alcohol as my go-to beach drink. Nick, I don't know about you. I also like the Super Slap, which is a stronger version of the classic Slap and Tickle.
Our favorite.
That's an IPA, so I know we're big IPA guys. Curbside pickup 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., open every day 11 a.m. to midnight. That's it for the ad reads. Let's jump into some football. Nick,
I'm so excited. I've been watching so many highlights from this past year. I just finished watching the Bucs game highlight where McVay asked Goff to throw 50 times and they still won the game. It's just I remember watching that game and just being like, wow, I can't believe they actually pulled this off. Because up until that point, it was very few times when he asked them to do that were they able to win those games.
So apparently you want to jump right into the Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford.
Well, no. I mean, that's just what's been on my mind. The Rams social media has been making it a point to put out highlight videos, and they're like, look at this Woods game. Look at this Cup game. They're going off. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's Goff's throwing dimes.
Right. Well, the features here, it was a hell of a game by Goff. And I think that your point you're trying to make is you've been watching previous film. You've watched.
Yeah, I'm hankering.
Before you're ready to go. I think we all are. And training camp is today. We're actually going to be recording and dropping this episode while training camp is going on. It looks like everybody's reporting to training camp. Thank God there's no players that have asked for a trade, no new contracts, et cetera, right? McVay's also pretty confident, Nick, in their approach with the vaccine, saying that they're close to 100% in terms of players who are fully vaccinated.
Got to be thankful that we don't have a Carson Wentz on the team, somebody who's supposed to be leading and caring about wins that, is declining to answer about vaccine questions. So it's just nice to have a level-headed minded team.
Well, it's pretty interesting. Ryan Tannehill came out and said that the league pretty much required him to get the vaccine, which, I mean, it's pretty much the case right now. It's not filed under the new CBA. So it's kind of like a separate rule that was mandated by the league, essentially making it a requirement. So it's a tricky situation to be in. And it is a personal choice, right? I don't think we're going to get too much into the vaccine stuff. The only report, though, of COVID-19 so far is Tutu Atwell. So Tutu Atwell, he's got a lot to overcome so far. So far, he's leaked the playbook, fake uniforms, right? So the uniform release. And also now he's going to be out for roughly 7 to 10 days. So he's going to miss a big chunk of training camp. He's going to miss the first day in pads in a position group where there's a lot of stability. So for somebody to have to ramp up that quickly, you're wondering if that's increased reps in the preseason or if it's just more personal work on the side with Tutu Atwell, depending on how he's going to fit in that receiver group and how potentially he could fit in on special teams, which is something that we're going to continue to talk about.
Right, because, what I was going to say is he's probably first in line to be receiving punts this year, would be my thought, just based on the kind of guy that he is, that speedy kind of dude. He's just one of those guys where it's like he's probably so much fun to have around, but like it takes him a little longer to button up than everybody else.
Well, yeah, they want him to gain some weight. I think that's going to naturally take some time. Unless it's me and you, it seems like we could pack on 5 pounds over the weekend. But they're asking him to gain 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. You could do that by packing on calories. It's not something that's overly difficult to do. Depends on his workload, how much he's running right now with COVID-19. I would assume that he's not running at all. So a good opportunity to just pack on those calories if he has an appetite. Maybe comes back a little bit heavier. But I don't think conditioning is going to be an issue with him. He's such a young guy. We'll get more into his potential role on special teams later. But no players.
He's somebody that you assume must be taking preseason snaps, right? Because I know McVay's all about resting starters, but
no, he's going to be playing. Yeah, he's going to be playing a lot of snaps in the preseason, I would assume.
I would hope.
Yeah, no, I think there's a 99%
which
chance
is
he's going to
sneaking up on us, man. We got like 2 weeks until preseason.
Yeah, it's coming around really quick. I mean, it's 10 total practices I think they have with training camp, and then on Saturday they put on the pads. So it's going to be interesting to monitor. One thing is going to be health. Of course, there's been no players that are put on the physically unable to perform list, which is pretty encouraging. The team's going to be smart with players who have accumulated a lot of experience, a lot of injury, are more so tenured players like Whitworth and Robert Woods and Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp. Those are all guys that you definitely have to be careful with. So I think there's
probably on a pitch count.
Yeah, I mean, that bursitis in his knee was pretty nasty. Plus, he had a previous ACL, MCL tear. So, and Whitworth is coming off of an MCL sprain, and he was ready for the playoffs, and he seems like he's ready to go. But again, you're going to monitor their workload all throughout training camp.
Yeah. I also appreciate, this is one thing I really love about McVay, is he kind of set the standard of we're not you guys aren't playing preseason. I don't want to see what you have. I trust you, and I'd rather you just be rested, which is something that we've seen other teams kind of take that and move, run with it. And I think that's a great thing that he's incorporated into this Rams culture. Yeah,
I mean, Sean McVay stated you're not going to see any Darrell Henderson in the preseason. You're not going to see any Matthew Stafford in the preseason. So, I mean, you're right. It trickled out throughout the rest of the league. But I think that's a personality that McVay's kind of taken on, an identity that he's kind of taken on, right, where he's innovative and, he's the golden boy, so he could do things differently and get away with it. But it seems like that's actually something that he's instilled that has had a positive impact across the entire league. I want to talk about McVay's recent comments on the running back position. He talked about not signing Todd Gurley. Obviously, Todd Gurley was brought up. And then the impact of losing Cam Akers. Nick, I haven't heard your opinion yet on the impact of losing Cam. I got to talk about it on Ryan's pod recently, but let's hear what your thoughts are on losing Cam Akers.
I love Darrell Henderson. I do. I mean, from what we saw from him last year, I would feel more confident if we still had Brown.
Okay. Yeah, fair.
But I think Henderson is a RB1, and if all this Stafford love is warranted in any way, then we should if everybody's all right, having Stafford is leaps and bounds better than having Goff just on the table, right? If that's the case, then he should be able to be more of a dynamic quarterback that doesn't need to hinder as much on the run game, right?
Right.
So with that in place, say that is facts, even though I think it's questionable, then we should be fine. I think Darrell Henderson is somebody that you can kind of put the majority of the workload on. That being said, it's going to be a committee. So people like Funk maybe that kid steps up and has an amazing year, and he takes on the majority of the workload or something like that. I mean, who's to say what's going to happen? But I think they're a hair worse without Cam, and I loved Cam, but I'd like it. To me, it's not like Woods or Whitworth or Donald or Ramsey or Stafford. Like it's like a kind of like a second tier kind of hit.
Well, I think it goes to show that the overall value of the running back position has digressed, right?
Yeah.
I think you could bring in
nothing against Cam. Yeah.
Nothing against Cam at all. It's incredible to have a top tier running back. The kind of impact that kind of player can make on your team, especially late in the season in the playoffs, is huge. I think Sean McVay thinks Darrell Henderson is a lead back. They drafted him to be a lead back. I don't necessarily think that's the case whatsoever. I think it's primarily because of durability and the fact that his pass protection ability still has room for improvement. I think there's still a lot that he can do there with Thomas Brown off to the sideline to help improve that. I don't think that's stuff that he's been working on, right? We heard reports that Cam Akers was spending a majority of time focusing on that. So I'm sure there's an adjusted role there, but I do think he has the skill set. I just think he's much better off in a rotation. That's not an insult to Darrell Henderson as a player whatsoever. I just think it would work better just based on his durability, keeping him fresh, being able to get him into the second level. If you could have some kind of committee. Now, the problem with the committee is you have three guys who've never had a professional carry. And Cam Akers was in a position with Sean McVay where Sean McVay didn't have to worry about another running back by committee. He was in a good position coming in.
So he said.
Right. Fair. But,
I don't know if that would have been the case. I mean, you still have Henderson and, it's just like the same plug and play kind of, like different plays for different skill sets. And I think we would have seen both of them a lot either way. And I know he was saying every down back, but from what I saw from Cam last year, yes, it was amazing. And yes, it was getting better as it went on, which is hype. But I didn't think he was like top 10, like first round fantasy pick. Great.
Yeah, well, it's the projection, right? Him coming into his second year, they figure he could have potentially carried the ball 250 to 300 times this season coming up. But to your point, there were also games where Darrell Henderson, when Cam Akers was out or Cam Akers was in the game, where he was more so of a spark. So you can go with him or you can pivot to Malcolm Brown. So you're right. To your point, it was somewhat of a committee last year, especially with the durability issues amongst the whole group. But I don't know. I think there's an adjustment to be made. I think that there's going to be, there were some schematic changes, I think, over the last couple of years because of Cam Akers, right? He was the kind of person, the kind of back that had really good anticipation and patience once he had the ball. So you probably noticed over the last couple of years, without Todd Gurley, they moved kind of away from that wide zone heavy scheme. So they're moving more so into the zone scheme is something that has been around since the Shanahan era and was essentially Sean McVay's childhood, was that wide zone scheme. But then you bring in some new concepts, some gaps and traps and power eyes, which we saw last year, where they put Gerald Everett in that
Wildcats.
Yeah, the Wildcat, right? Those more tighter looks play better to Cam Akers' strength. I don't know if that's the case with Darrell Henderson. It may be the case with Xavier Jones or Raymond Calais or Jake Funk. Right. So that's going to be that's another thing you have to reevaluate, and maybe you have to make some schematic changes that play more in favor to the personnel that you have now versus Cam Akers. So really all it is it's another project for that coaching staff to have to work on.
It's potential depth because, like you said, a lot of these guys haven't even touched the ball in a professional game.
Right.
So it could be depth. And that's why I'm kind of like, well, right now it's preseason, it's camp. This is the time to fiddle and move around. Why not bring in a Frank Gore? Bring in a potentially Marshawn Lynch if you would be willing to. I don't know. It's like, to me, it's like they're already ruling it out, and they're like, oh, we trust the guys in the building. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be halfway through the season and then be like, oh, we got Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
No,
I get that.
Well, why not fiddle, especially with the great offensive mind that we have, bring in some guys that have been there and done that before. And obviously Gurley, would be beautiful to bring back, just like how one day it could be magical that we get back off, but that'll never happen.
No.
And just like, this, I mean, I don't know why Gurley would ever want to come back with the way he was treated at the end. Like, I don't think he wants to play for McVay.
No, I think the veteran running back approach is, it's more so of like a panic thing, right?
But like, I'm not saying we should be panicking, but I'm saying we should be at least like, if we're going to be going by committee, why not have somebody in there that is
at the same time, right? I agree with you. At the same time, and it's a position group that you can't afford with Stafford's history of only having one 100-yard rusher in the last like 10 years. I think it was Reggie Bush. You can't. You want to be able to give him some stability in the run game, and you don't want to be one-dimensional. So that's where the concern comes in. I don't think they're necessarily going to make a move right away, but I think it's something down the line, just based on what we've heard, that they could potentially bring in somebody like a Peterson or a Frank Gore or a Duke Johnson or one of those guys, right? Or
Marshawn Lynch.
Whoever that could be. Here's the quote from Sean McVay regarding Darrell Henderson. Darrell Henderson's played really good football. We've got an opportunity leading up to that September 12th date against the Bears to really say, okay, what can Calais do? What can Funk do? What could Xavier Jones do? How do these guys really illustrate their skill set on the practice field? To say you would never do it regarding bringing in a veteran, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself into that. But we are going to use camp as an opportunity to let Thomas Brown, the running backs coach, pour into these guys and see how they can compete and how they handle a heavier workload than they anticipated. So, again, in-house options, it sounds like what they're going to go with.
He's such a politician where it's like, he dances around the question in like such a beautiful way. You know what I mean? It's like, well, we're not going to rule this out, but we're going to trust what we have right now until we don't trust it. And it's like, yeah.
He's tricky.
I get that.
I think that's one thing that was attractive as a hire, as a coach, right? You come into an interview room and you have all the answers to every question, and then you could work the media in a direction that defends your players, but also makes you look smart. You could
argue that a football coach doesn't need that skill set, but I guess that it's good. It's good for a human being.
Well, I remember being in this area with Andy Reid. Every time he stepped off the podium, all of Philadelphia was like, this is the dumbest guy we could possibly have in charge, which was simply not the case.
I'm just thinking gold standard Bill Belichick. Like, he doesn't deal with that crap.
Well, Bill Belichick doesn't say anything. They're both the kind of guys that say we got to do a better job and then cut it at that. So I'm fine with that. I would like the answer that I would like.
It gives us more to work with. So, that's a positive.
I would like to see a little bit of arrogance where it's like, we're going to bring in whoever we want at whatever time. And it's not an issue to you guys. It's an in-house issue. We'll figure it out. And you guys will see as it happens. You know what I mean? But that's not what we're ever going to get from McVay. He dances around it. I'm getting like CJ Anderson vibes right now where it's like, oh, our guy went down. Why not bring in somebody that can, help us out right now? Well, that's what they might get. And that we just might not get that until like a week 6 or something like that.
Or like week 17, like 15, like it happened in 2018.
It could happen that way too. You just never know. But we're just kind of trying to read between the tea leaves here. The center position, definitely something we want to talk about here briefly. McVay said that
does this not scare the crap out of you? This scares the crap out of me more than anything else. And I know, Golden Boy, or no, I can't call Stafford Golden Boy. That's what I call McVay. I don't know, Silver Boy Matty's daddy, can scramble and can do everything and is a GOAT already, right? But I mean, regardless, I'm terrified of him not having any time now.
No,
3 different centers in 3 years, right?
Yeah. Well, So if Corbett is taking the first team reps, they talked about McVay talked about rather, that he loved what he did from the right guard position, and he's looking forward to seeing what Brian Allen and Coleman Shelton bring to camp. So I guess he's essentially saying there's going to be some competition there, but he's kind of contradicting himself by saying, yeah, we love Corbett at right guard and he'll play center for now, but if we identify that Brian Allen is better suited to start, then we'll move Corbett back to right guard and everything will be rainbows and butterflies. I don't necessarily see it that way, right? The way that what they're asking of Austin Corbett, he's really the only comfortable option for me at this point. Would it be him starting at center just because Brian Allen has put almost 0 good reps on tape? And for McVay to come out and say that he likes what he's done over the spring is just blowing smoke. So I feel like Austin Corbett's ability to show versatility in the NFL after already moving on from Cleveland. He played left guard, he played right guard, and now he's going to play center. He's put a lot of really good work on film, and I just feel like I'm not a fan of the let's try it out and see how it works tactic, right? So, for example, just plugging Brian Allen back in like he did in 2019 and just seeing how that experiment went. Like in 2019, Nick, they signed Clay Matthews, Eric Weddle, and Dante Fowler, and then we'll just ride with an in-home option at the center position with Brian Allen. A late-round draft pick, which, I mean, it hampered the whole offensive line. Which totally just blew my mind, especially
and it's like
you're coming off of one of the best centers you've ever had in franchise history, who McVay talks so highly about, and you replace him with a guy coming in who's just not ready for the professional level. So I'm not ready for that experiment.
That's one of the knocks that I've always kind of had on McVay. It's like he got those guys, all of them, huge names, Weddle, Matthews, Fowler, and it's like, would you just forget what kind of quarterback that Jared Goff was? Like, the dude needed time upon time all the time. TVA back there, could have stopped the clock for him. Would have loved that. But, it's stuff like that. It's like, let's bring in people, it don't have to be flashy, but let's bring in somebody that actually knows what they're doing. That being said, though, you have to be a little stoked that it's Corbett right now, as opposed to somebody else from our regime that kind of hasn't been as versatile.
Well, I mean, you saw what Bobby Evans could do in a couple of years with some light work. Right over the years, you saw he's a capable backup that can come in and play some snaps. So for him to be, I'm more concerned about the right guard position, right? Because you're replacing a position right next to the right hand side of the line where Havenstein's coming off of a comeback year. Then if you plug in somebody who doesn't have the experience on the right side and you move Corbett over to center, I think that's why McVay's still in between that decision, because they were so great on the right side last year. Why do you have to mess with that chemistry? But it's because you didn't bring in a center. And you feel like you could fill it with an in-house option, which I'm just not confident in. And yet it scares me. I feel like Stafford will be able to make up for some of that.
I think just like bar level, like being able to avoid pressure, like points for Stafford over Goff. So I think they're kind of banking on that though as well, which is a little scary,
Yeah, I know. I think you just want to kind of mitigate as much gambling as you possibly can before an NFL season starts. And I feel like they're gambling at this position.
But have they not every year?
Yeah.
It feels like this is their gamble every single year.
Well, yeah, that's what they've done. There's no consistency at the position. And I guess they feel like it's a plug and play. They feel like that where you can rotate in guys. You just bring in late round draft picks at safety and defensive back. And Snead's really great at that. But I feel like there's just been a lack of being able to identify a top tier center. Even though Blythe came in last year and did pretty well, there's still some concern, right? You go from Sullivan to Austin Blythe, or to Brian Allen, to Austin Blythe, and then to Austin Corbett. It's just a lot of change in the position. So
it's just not something they prioritize. It's just low on the priority list, which is crazy.
We'll continue to monitor it and see if Stafford can just,
eat it. Yeah,
just eat it and have us forget that it's even an issue. Let's do a deep dive into the defense. I think we're long overdue for this. We haven't really talked too much about the defense, but there have been some recent comments from Darius Williams on Robert Rochelle, and just some similarities he sees potentially with him and Jalen Ramsey and his ceiling there. There's also just a ton of comments and position battles that I think have come out from this defense in general. So I just wanted to talk about it, and then we'll jump into some of those main topics. But Nick, Darius Williams, do you feel like just right off the top, is this a guy that could just come in and do the exact same thing that he did last year? I don't feel like there's any reason why he can't at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he was top tier last year. I mean, like the plays against Seattle, for whatever reason, he always stepped up against Seattle.
Yeah.
That one holy grail play where he's leaning back and tips the very top of the ball to stop it, from getting in the hands of the receiver. I don't see any reason why he would decline.
Yeah. I think the good thing is too with him right now, he's not concerned about the contract. right? They know that he's there on a a 1-year tender. So he could, there's negotiations that'll happen after the season. He potentially wants to stay in LA, but right now he's there. And I think this is why placing that first round tender on him was so smart. He's there mentoring guys like Robert Rochelle, and Jalen Ramsey's there is going to be able to help mentor that group. And guys like Terrell Burgess and Taylor Rapp need those additional reps. So I think that whole group working in a cohesive way is going to be something to look at. And just his comments on Rochelle, I thought were awesome, right? That he's going to be
hypothetical.
Yeah, right.
Hypothetical. I want to throw your way because, as you know, and I know, Howard from the Dolphins, Xavier Howard.
Yeah.
He requested trade, right? Apparently, a lot of playoff teams are getting on the phone with him. Is that someone that you kind of go after and you kind of leave Williams on the table for, or is it not an equal fit?
Yeah, potentially it could be a fit for next year if Darius Williams isn't around. So the thing I'm worried about Xavier Howard, right? He's a big interceptions guy. He's not a great coverage guy.
He's like a Peters, huh?
He's more so of a Marcus Peters, I feel like.
Yeah. He's the whole casino, as Wade Phillips would say.
Yep, and it shows in his numbers too. So to have somebody like that alongside of Jalen Ramsey would be, I think, would pay dividends, right? But I don't think we're there yet. I do think Robert Rochelle has that type of ceiling, though, and I think that's what Darius Williams is trying to refer to, saying that he's so explosive and he's got everything in his body to be an elite corner. And I think just McVay's comments on the cornerback position or just defensive backs as a whole, calling him one of the deepest spots on the roster, it makes me feel like they're completely set at that position, and Xavier Howard's not even somebody that they would reach out to bring in. Ramsey and Williams on the opposite sides, and then Nick Scott in the slot, and then some combination of Fuller and Burgess and Taylor Rapp is what I'm expecting to see. It's hard to imagine that they'll have less than 5 defensive backs on the field at all times. They ran out of nickel, 5 defensive backs, which is nickel, 59% of the time last year, and then dime or dime plus, which is 6 defensive backs or more, 26% of the time. So you have Raheem Morris coming in, who looks at this super deep defensive back class and is probably thinking to himself, well, I ran a lot of base last year, which is 4 defensive backs. They ran that 25% or 24% of the time in Atlanta. And then nickel, 75% of the time, which is 5 defensive backs, and no plays with 6 defensive backs or more. So while I feel like they're going to do some similar things that they did last year with Brandon Staley with those heavy sub packages with multiple defensive backs, I think there's also an opportunity to kind of scale it in a little bit, and then bring some other guys in the box, right? You have some players like Ernest Jones and Micah Kaiser and Kenny Young who could play in the box, Taylor Rapp. So I think the defense is going to be a little bit different, but they just have so much versatility in that defensive back grouping that I don't think they're going to have any issues doing whatever it is that they need to do. So,
yeah, I mean, part of it, Burgess and Rapp together doesn't really excite me as much as even if it is the dime where you get more of them on the field, it's still a little sus.
Well, yeah, no, I get it. I think if you bring Rapp in, right, he can play a little bit of hybrid linebacker, and then you have Burgess as the standard strong safety, and you could have Fuller as the free safety. I think they'll be fine there. I don't know how much they're going to rotate those 2 players. I think Burgess is a little bit better of a player just from what I've seen, and the safety role versus what Rapp can do as a tackler in the box. So I just think it'll be different sub packages where you could rotate in those 2 guys, and they're both going to get some work. So.
And you have to think that even Staley kind of set the blueprint. It's going to be a whole different scheme.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to dive into a little bit too, because I thought it was going to be a completely different scheme with Morris taking over. It sounds like from what Kenny Young said that it's going to be very much the same scheme. They're just going to make some minor adjustments and tweaks. Which I'm excited about, just because Atlanta's defense hasn't really been anything that's revolutionary over the past couple of years. I think Morris is going to be somebody who's kind of like a plug and play coach who's purely energy and has some good ideas and can add some wrinkles to the defense. But you're going to see a lot of what you saw last year from Brandon Staley's defense because
hopefully, right?
You're the number 1 defense in the league. Kenny Young came out and said that he feels like there's not as much stress on him anymore because they don't have to learn a brand new defense over again. So I think that's encouraging. And then I think when you look at the edge position, the outside linebacker position, and McVay's recent comments on Justin Hollins, he said Justin Hollins has really inserted himself as a good player opposite of Leonard Floyd and has a versatile skill set. And he's done a lot of good things last year, and he's still an ascending player in terms of accumulating that experience. So, like, I look at that group as well. You know, Terrell Lewis and Obo Okoronkwo, they're going to have a lot of different players who can come in and rotate. So I'm excited about what I'm going to see from the edge group, but I still think there was an opportunity where you could have brought somebody else in just because Justin Hollins, I mean, you saw he's got a highlight tape of like 6 plays. I mean, are you really that overly confident in somebody like that could just come in and play right away?
Right.
I don't know. I have just some concerns about him being the long-term answer. But again, as a backup, you have Terrell Lewis, who they spent, a 3rd-round draft pick on last year, who you should expect more out of. And then Obo's been around for almost 5 years. So that's just a matter of durability between those two guys. It's going to be interesting to see who's going to win that battle. But from what McVay is saying, it sounds like Justin Hollins is going to own that role.
Right. I mean, is that something that you think they're going to like rotate him frequently, or do you think it's going to be like more just like one standard?
Well, I think if the team is run heavy, I think Justin Hollins is more of a player like Leonard Floyd who can get around the edge and then also contain. Where I think like Terrell Lewis and Obo are more like speed rusher type guys, where you just want to get them into the backfield as quick as possible to make a play. So they're not as technically sound. But again, you have another guy like Justin Hollins who could play the same kind of role as Leonard Floyd on the opposite side. So I think they just feel like they have some continuity at that position. But Terrell Lewis is like the guy who we all wanted to see come out and play really well. We just saw it in such small doses.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I'm kind of looking forward to.
Yeah, I want to see Terrell Lewis be a player in some form, and same with Obo. So,
at least Obo has shown the consistency throughout those years. You know what I mean? Like, he's kind of been like a workhorse this whole time.
Yeah, he just hasn't been able to stay on the field,
yeah,
which is just devastating.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of what position it happens in this year. So the linebacker group, the Rams only kept 3 linebackers last year, which is just insane to believe. And we're talking about inside linebackers. Saw Kenny Young in the building. We talked about what Kenny Young had to say. And a lot of Brandon Staley's defense, I think, is going to be heavily utilized again. But they also have this year a stereotypical Mike linebacker on the roster in Micah Kaiser and Ernest Jones. So I think it would be crazy for them not to want Ernest Jones to come out and win that Mike linebacker role, especially considering how much Les Snead came out and said he loves the pick. I also don't think it's 100% necessary for him to just come out and earn that starting role right away. So, I mean, like Kenny Young is a guy that you could just kind of plug in on week 1, and you could have Ernest Jones learn behind him and learn behind some of the other talent on the roster. But I think in terms of the scheme, they want to have somebody that can go sideline to sideline, like somebody like Micah Kaiser, who they thought initially could do that but can't stay on the field. And Ernest Jones fits more so of the role of the traditional Mike linebacker. So I think that's what they're going to want on the field initially, right? Because they've had these hybrid athletic type guys, the Xavier Howards, Kenny Youngs, and Troy Reeders, who have came in and done a decent job. But if they do go a little bit heavier in the box with Raheem Morris, you're going to want somebody that's more big-bodied and that can lead the defense up in the box. So, I mean, that's what I'm thinking with Ernest Jones.
Well, Morris, I mean, if you watched any of the Falcons defense last year, that's kind of one of their strengths, but also kind of one of their faults, you know, because they would bring too many people in, and that would lead to, big, broken, huge gains down the field. Yeah. But at the same time, they didn't have like a Jalen Ramsey back there,
and they didn't have an Aaron Donald on the defensive line.
Right. Or a Robinson. So you got to think that hopefully it's just tough because it's like, do you trust all those people in the back that have proven themselves, or do you kind of run something where you're a little more like trepidatious on those accounts? And I guess we'll see what Morris is bringing in. But a lot, we saw a lot, at least last year in Atlanta, there was a lot of blitz packages where linebackers coming in.
Yeah, which I mean, you could send linebackers if they're not going to drop in coverage, and if they're not good coverage players, right, you're going to want to be able to send them and have that ability to blitz, which I think a lot of them are going to be working on. Right, pass rushing is always a big quality within an inside linebacker. But I think Ernest Jones, just based on some of the analytics that came back on him, the GPS coordinates where he always knows where he is on the field, is going to play into his strengths. I think Micah Kaiser has that too, so I would like to see him play. But I still think, you're going to have somebody that's inevitably going to be the odd man out. And Christian Roseboom, who's been around for a while, is essentially like the fifth or sixth linebacker, inside linebacker that's going to be on the roster. So he could be on the practice squad or could get cut. Who knows? But the question that I wanted to ask you, and I think it's kind of been lingering the whole episode, does McVay and his coaching staff get too comfortable with in-house options after losing starting caliber players? So, I mean, you're coming off the losses of John Johnson, Troy Hill, an injury to Cam Akers, and you're just filling it with in-house options. I mean, is that something that you're comfortable with as a fan?
I mean, I think it's all position-based. You know what I mean? Because I trust the defense to kind of have like a stronger hold, at least after last year. They seem to work more as like a complete unit. So you lose somebody like John Johnson. I mean, yeah, it hurts, but I feel that. I feel like they can step it up. I think at the same time with Cam Akers, it's a little more. Why not bring in somebody? You know what I mean? Yeah. At least try. At least try. But I appreciate that McVay and the entire coaching staff does at least outwardly show that they trust the people in the building because they haven't done that in the past.
Well, yeah, I think in
at least with Jared.
Yeah, well, I think in prior years they've tried to fill voids with players that have already been in-house. But I mean, I think Darrell Henderson's a really good example of somebody who's I think he's clearly the second running back on a depth chart. But I mean, again, you're just going to come in and claim that he's the first running back that's going to be ready to go. I think is a tricky situation to be in, but he could prove us all wrong. David Long again in the nickel role too, replacing Troy Hill, who didn't seem like he was going to have a career. He was with the St. Louis Rams, came over to Los Angeles, and we were like, is this guy really going to be a player? Does he have any potential whatsoever? He came in and played really well over the last couple of years. So there might be a learning gap there for David Long Jr. if he's going to come in and own that nickel role. But yeah, I mean, I just think that with this team, when you get too comfortable and you're too reliant on options that are already in-house, it could bite you later down the line.
I agree with that, especially because I was just going to say, especially because a lot of those options, if you look at it now, they're all like second round, third round picks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just based on what they've done.
You also have to take into account getting down to 53 men on the depth chart, which is difficult. You got to take into account how bringing in another player or trading for a player affects the cap. So it's not as easy as just saying, "Oh, well, let's just sign players."
Right. Yeah.
Replace them. But
yeah, there's a whole number ratio that I'm not even putting into account. I mean, but at the same time, this is when you do stuff like that.
Yeah,
you do it before the season starts. So.
Right. How about the punt return job?
All right, this is something that scares the crap out of me. Our special teams last year was god awful. Fossil was so missed.
Yeah, he was.
And we lost. We cut Simba. I mean, kind of for better or for worse. I think for better. He's not returning punts anymore, which is kind of huge. But like we said earlier, 2-2 potential option. Deshaun? You don't think so?
Oh, well, I mean, for injury reasons. I think
right. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of old.
Yeah, you want to try to keep him healthy. I mean, Jake Funk is an option. Cooper Kupp is an option.
No, they won't do Kupp. They shouldn't do Kupp.
Let me ask you this: out of everybody on the roster, who would you want to see return punts? And you can't answer with Aaron Donald.
What if? Hear me out. Hecker punts it, runs down, gets the ball. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I really don't know. I would hope it would be somebody that is equally as explosive on the offense. So they're kind of putting in double time. Like you're doing special teams and you're also making great catches or runs. So best case scenario, you throw out Henderson, right? But I just don't know if that's
no,
feasible.
I don't think that's in the cards. I don't know. You might maybe get in some rotation from the rookie Ben Skronik. Could be an option as a punt returner. I'm trying to think of some other candidates.
Someone who kind of can bring some magic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I had another player on my mind. Maybe it'll come back to me. In terms of kick returning, I like players like Raymond Calais and Jake Funk. I think they're both going to be competing for the kick return job. Again, I said Deshaun Jackson has too much.
Hopefully they don't take it out too often.
Yeah, no. Well, hopefully they don't. And I've seen highlights of Raymond Calais taking it back. I think 105 yards. Jake Funk has some experience to it. As a fourth running back on the roster, that's usually third and fourth running backs on the roster. That's usually the two guys that can come in and return some punts or kicks. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see. I would like to see Tutu Atwell come in and win the job. I think, the fact that he's probably not going to be on the field early on in the offense, he can come in, earn some time, flash his speed a little bit. I think will be a good way to get him acclimated into the league. But if he's too frail or they feel like he's going to make a mistake, you got Simba Webster 2.0. So I don't know. Again, it's just
last year they had 4 fumbles on punt returns last year. So it's kind of that's something. 4 is an ungodly amount. So
it just makes your stomach turn every time.
I just don't want to be biting my nails every time we're, after a great defensive stop. You know what I mean?
And it shouldn't be that way. I mean, 39.2 net punt average was the 7th worst in the NFL. They were also one of the 10 teams to have a punt blocked this past season. So they're losing their tenured long snapper in Jake McQuaid. And Matthew Orzik has to play mistake-free football at the long snapper position this year. So you're trusting a new face, which the DVOA for the special teams last year, we talked about this multiple times, was 30th overall. So you really can't get that much worse. I was one of those guys that when Fossil left, I remember we talked about this. I was like, oh, it's no big deal. They're going to be able to replace him easily. I remember you're right. You were on the other side. I remember researching John Bonamego, and I'm like, well, he's been a special teams coordinator for 30 years. How difficult?
Hey, he's a paisan. We'll be fine.
How difficult could this possibly be? And all of a sudden, it turns into one of the worst groups in football. So they got to make an adjustment quick. There's got to be a way that they could just turn it around. If you get back to 2017, 2018 form, where they were blocking punts and blocking field goals and returning kicks. I mean, it's just a different feel. And I think
McVay wants that. Just subtract the trick plays.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it can give you momentum boosts in every regard. I mean, it's the third phase. You just have to be able to do it. You can't fall to the bottom, and it's nerve-wracking for fans. So McVay said he thinks it's still up in the air in terms of the position. Something we've talked about for the last handful of months with Joe D, who's Joe DeCamillis, and Coach Dwayne Stukes, and figuring those guys out. He said we have a lot of candidates that are capable of doing it. Exactly who's doing it week 1 against the Bears is to be determined, and that's the beauty of having a little bit of time to get it figured out. I feel like there's no time. Do you feel like there's any time? I feel like the season will start tomorrow.
Absolutely not. I love the once again another great politician answer. It's like we have all of the time in the world to figure out this massive problem that is presented on our laps. Who do you think the pick is, or who do you think is going to be? Honestly, not who you think the best person for the job is, but who you think it's realistically going to be. I think it's probably going to be Deshaun week 1.
I think it's going to be a combination of Tutu, Deshaun, and then there's a third player that comes in.
Like a Funk.
Well, I mean, I don't know what Tutu is going to be able to do. I think Deshaun Jackson, right, if you're behind by 7 points with 4 seconds left and the team happens to punt, you're going to put Deshaun Jackson back there because you might get Miracle at the Meadowlands, right? You might get the most unbelievable punt return you've ever seen. So absolutely, he could be used as a weapon in late game scenarios. And he's probably somebody that wants the ball in that situation versus Tutu, who's a rookie.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be getting the ball that much as is. So,
well, who are you talking about, Deshaun or Tutu?
Deshaun.
Well, I mean, he's a 3 to 4 catch a game type guy if he's healthy.
Right. And he's also like the guy that kind of blows the top off, right? So I feel like they're not going to be hitting him that frequently. So I think he's going to be trying to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? I feel like that would be a very Rams type move if you let Deshaun return the first punt. Because he's back in LA and he probably had some kind of say in the decision. And he'll probably flash throughout practice that he's untouchable when he returns punts. So you never know.
At least, to our bad special teams, I'm sure he's going to look like a goat.
Deshaun Jackson has this thing about him where he scores week 1 every single year. Every single year, if he's healthy, Deshaun Jackson scores a touchdown week 1.
Is that fact?
So look it up. Whether it's a punt return or it's an 85-yard bomb, I have a feeling that would be a bet that I would take. Is Deshaun?
It sounds like a fun week 1 bet.
Yeah,
I'm so excited for Nick's picks to come back.
He's going to be flying down the field. So I'm interested to see that. I'm excited for Nick's picks to come back too. All right, we talked about everything that's on the script outside of the latest odds to win the conference and the Super Bowl, which it's Nick's picks. We're going to be back in Nick's picks in a month and a half, so I'll let you do this.
Preseason picks?
Maybe. Give us some stuff off the top of your head after we go through the odds.
Rams every week. No. Last year, I think for Nick's picks, I think it was like 14 for 16. I said Rams. But listen, Rams have the second best odds to win the conference before today. They're now second to Green Bay now that Rodgers is officially back.
They're now third. I'm sorry, that's a typo. They're third.
Oh, well, were they tied with the Niners?
So it's Tampa Bay. Yeah, and they're tied with the Niners at plus 650. Yeah.
Wait, Green Bay's at plus 600.
Green Bay is second at plus 600.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is where the Rams previously were, and I think Green Bay was at plus 800.
Yeah. But now they're at the fourth best odds behind Kansas City, Tampa, Buffalo, and Green Bay for the Super Bowl.
Yep. Yeah.
Ravens, Rams, and the Niners are all at plus 14,000.
Yeah.
Browns right behind them at plus 16,000, which is a little I'm happy that they're above that because I can't believe the Browns are even that high. And I felt like if we were in that category, I would feel a lot less confident about this season.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's the Rams at plus 1,400, the Browns at plus 1,600, and then there's a large gap with New Orleans being plus 2,500 with no Drew Brees. So I think anybody in that group, that top grouping, so Tampa Bay, Green Bay, the Chiefs, Buffalo, the Ravens, the Niners, and the Rams.
Where are the Steelers?
I don't think they have a shot. They're probably in the New Orleans category.
Huh.
Yeah.
I think they'll win that division this year.
I think it's Cleveland's division to lose. That's for sure. And Baltimore.
The AFC North is the NFC West.
Yeah.
Those are the same, I think, because you have three teams that are hot fire, and then you have one team that's young but will probably be solid in the future.
They're the AFC East. Yeah.
No, they're the North, right? Or no?
They're the East.
East, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
I said North.
Yeah. That division, I think, is actually better than the NFC West. I think the third best team, I think Seattle's an 8 or 9 win team this year. I think the Steelers can win 10 or 11 games, and then I think Baltimore can win 11 or 12, and same with Cleveland. So it's going to be even tougher to get out of that division, I think, than it is going to be to get out of the West.
Yeah, you might be right. I think this year you have 3 teams coming out of the West.
Yeah, one of them is going to get or 2 wild cards, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Almost had it last year, but the Cardinals had to play us. So
yeah, and we kept them out.
Yeah,
and we'll always keep them out. Yeah, I don't know. I think the odds shifting. Part of me thinks it's Vegas trying to get people more engaged with the Last Dance that Aaron Rodgers is trying to sell, right? Because if the odds go up,
There was no
then
first
more-
dance between these two.
Well, I know that's another thing that annoys me about this whole Last Dance thing. They won 1 Super Bowl. You didn't win 6 championships, so you can't call it the Last Dance. It's not in the same.
And it's also like what? Are you definitely retiring next year? Like,
well, the way that it seems is he's going to be able to get out of the contract next year, and then he can go wherever else he wants to go after that.
right.
And that
I mean,
wasn't originally in his contract.
I don't think they're they don't really scare me, honestly. Minus the giant probably mind mess that Stafford has when he plays Green Bay.
No, I mean, probably that. But in the beginning of the episode, we talked about how nobody's complaining about their contract or anything like that. And you saw Devontae Adams today was really arrogant when he was asked about his contract. I think he was just defensive, and he wants to get paid for what he wants to get paid for. They also traded a 6th-round pick for Randall Cobb just to make Aaron Rodgers happy. Like, there's some craziness going on in that organization.
I feel like you can't win a championship that way.
I don't.
There's so many butting heads throughout from top to bottom. You know what I mean? It just seems what is LaFleur even going to do? You know what I mean? Like, is Rodgers even going to listen to him? Like,
yeah, well, I think Matt LaFleur is a good coach, but at the same time, Rodgers, like, he was the one that was talking about how he's had all this personal experience right in the locker room with chemistry and being on the field, right? It's different from somebody who's in the box, who's a GM or who's a coach. So he feels like that puts him in a position where he could help influence decisions. He wants to be a voice. He doesn't have to be the final say, but he wants to be able to influence some kind of decision if it impacts him on the field, which I understand. But if every quarterback took that mentality, the whole league would be a mess. And I don't know.
But you could also argue that he's not any quarterback.
You're right. That's
MVP last year. He's Aaron Rodgers. Like,
that's his argument.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he was saying at the podium. You know.
Yeah.
People don't. This is not a vacation destination. They come here to play with me, and yeah, you could say it's arrogant, but he's right. You know.
Yeah. My point was that I feel like Vegas lowered the number to keep people invested in Green Bay potentially winning the conference or the Super Bowl. Right. And because that number is
they're
like
0 for 2.
Yeah, I know. But that number now, it looks a little bit better. And if you're a better, right, it looks a little bit more enticing because it's a little bit lower and it's not, there's more certainty with Rodgers coming back and Adams coming back. So that's part of me thinks that. And then the other part of me is like, shit, we have another team in the conference outside of Tampa Bay who's going to give us an issue, and San Francisco. I mean, it's going to be really, really tough to expect Matt Stafford to get out of a conference where Brady and Rodgers are leading the charge, right? I would say the same about Jared Goff. I just think you're in a position where you have 2 of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. You have to beat 1 or 2 of them to get through. So bearing anything else happening, it's going to be difficult to get out of the conference, which is why they're the 3rd or 4th favorite. So
yeah,
it's just
you have somebody, and we're throwing out somebody who's never even won a playoff game. So
yeah.
Good for us.
Yeah, as soon as the trade happened, I'm like, we're going to ascend to the Super Bowl and we're going to win the Super Bowl in Los Angeles. It's going to be great. As the offseason's unfolded, you lose Cam Akers, Aaron Rodgers comes back, Tom Brady is healthy again. You know, the reality starts to creep back in, and you look outside of just the team that you cover, and you're like, oh, shit, there's some good things going on in Tampa Bay and Green Bay that will definitely impact the Rams. And I think they play them both this year. They played Tampa at home, and I think they play Green Bay in Green Bay. So both of those games are going to be popcorn the whole time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they'll both be great. I mean, our schedule this year is hard. It's not an easy schedule.
It always is.
Yeah.
And we're always like the 4th hardest schedule.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Don't want to, Oh, I mean, honestly, though, besides Tom Brady somehow getting like glorious schedules every year, which is just crazy, but like the teams with bad schedule or with really easy schedules usually don't go anywhere anyway. So
that's true. Yeah, there's a reason why they have an easy schedule. They're playing a 4th place schedule. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. All right, well, that's all we got for you guys today. Training camp is going to be underway in like 23 minutes here. So hopefully we'll have this episode out soon. You can follow along with training camp. You can follow along with us at Rams Brothers on all social platforms as it's been ticking on the bottom of your screen the whole episode. Nick, you're the man. Thanks for being the other brother of the pod.
You're the man. Thanks for setting this up, and always always enjoy talking to you. It's always great. Thanks for listening, guys. Don't forget, check out Manscaped 4.0 promo code LAFB20. A nice little 20% off. Also, like I used it. Girls I know use it. It's not just for guys. It's just a really good razor. And Brewery X, if you're ever in Anaheim, don't forget to stop by. Great beers. That's all I really want to say. I feel after every one of these, I always feel more confident going into week one. And I'm going to try to get to any of these preseason games if the tickets aren't that crazy, just to want to go to these SoFi games. So, hopefully I see some of you guys there. Dean, I was just talking to you today, trying to get you to come to this Detroit game. I think that would be.
Coming. We'll be there.
I think that'll be the most fun, game to go to this year.
You have to wear your Jared Goff jersey to that game.
Of course I will. Yeah. What kind of question is that?
1,000%.
If he gets booed in that game, I'm going to get up and leave.
He's not good. He'll get a standing ovation.
He better.
And you could lead the charge.
I will.
That's going to be great. You're going to be in the parking lot before the game, leading the charge. Unanimous standing ovation for Goff, right? Standing ovation for
standing
Goff.
Ovation, right? Standing ovation, standing ovation. Intervention.
That's going to be awesome. So I'm looking forward to. I think our next episode will probably butt heads more, as there's some training camp videos that come out, and as I'm overly excited and you're overly pessimistic.
I wonder if our listeners like it more when we're. I mean, I guess they do based on numbers. They like it more when we're not agreeing. But this is a pretty agreeable episode, so I apologize, everybody.
Yeah, sorry for the agreeable episode. But
it's just so much. It's so much harder to disagree with him when I just look at him and look at his face. You know what I mean? When it's all on the phone, I can just yell at him. But I'm just kidding.
Next episode.
Oh God!
Me versus you. I'll be talking up the Stafford throws at the social media team posts, only the good ones, and I will. I'll be talking that up. Thanks, guys.
LA's got a dog.
They do. They do. All right.